Now that summer is over, Canada's federal parliament is back in session. This means the Senate and the House of Commons are back at work reading and introducing new bills that could become new laws. Earlier this year, before the parliament left for recess, a bill that Ecojustice and our partners have been working on in different variations for several years, Bill S5, or Strengthening Environmental Protection for a Healthier Canada Act, went through the legislative process of the Senate. Now, in order for the bill to become a law, it must also pass through the legislative process of the House of Commons and receive royal assent from the Governor General. But why is Bill S5 so important? Why has Ecojustice and our partners been working on it for so long? And what happens when it finally becomes a bill? So here in Canada, we have a law called the Canadian Environmental Protection Act, or CEPA. CEPA is intended to protect people like you and me, those of us who are living in Canada, from toxics in our day-to-day lives. It's arguably one of the most important environmental laws because it mandates the regulation and removal of toxics that are harmful to human and environmental health from the market and industry. But here's the catch. CEPA, this critically important law that protects people like you and me from carcinogens and toxics, hasn't been updated since 1999. In the last 23 years, we've learned a lot about what makes us sick, which is why it's so important that we have an updated CEPA that will help prevent modern-day toxics from coming into our day-to-day lives. That's what Bill S5 intends to do. So what are some of the day-to-day toxics that we're exposed to due to an out-of-date CEPA? And what would a reformed CEPA help protect us against? Let's take a look. Receipts that get handed to you at the retailer or at the grocery store are notorious for often having a chemical called bisphenol A or BPA, or a nearly identical chemical called BPS, which has been used to replace BPA. BPA and BPS are widespread in our environment and often found in standard products like water bottles and food containers. One of the most common points of exposure we have to BPA and BPS is through the handling of receipts. BPA and BPS can be easily absorbed through the skin and is a concern to human health as it's linked to chronic asthma, prostate and breast cancers, reproductive issues, and attention disorders. People who are most at risk of BPA and BPS exposure are, of course, cashiers. And cashiers are often a demographic of low-income women. It's especially harmful to those who are pregnant or nursing. When we talk about wanting to introduce a reformed CEPA, it is absolutely crucial that we think about the communities that are most vulnerable and most exposed to chemicals. This is as much of an intersectional issue as any other environmental justice problem.
Cosmetics are one of the worst culprits for having a variety of toxic chemicals to human health, including oxybenzone, parabens, and phthalates. Chemicals known as PFAS can also be found in makeup. PFAS is used to give cosmetics the shiny, glossy appearance that you may sometimes see, and it is also highly toxic to human health. Often referred to as forever chemicals due to their resistance of breaking down in the natural environment, PFAS accumulates in the body and is linked to thyroid disease and cancer. PFAS are found in everything from concealers to lotions to shaving creams to cleansers to eyeshadows to floss. The list goes on. These toxics also end up accumulating in the Arctic. Research shows that Inuit communities are at much higher risk of exposure to PFAS than the average person in Vancouver or Toronto.
Furniture also contains a high variety of chemicals that are toxic to human health, particularly flame retardants. PBDE is a flame retardant that's used in office and home furniture and has been linked to hyperactivity and lower intelligence in children. While the idea of flame retardants in our home may seem to make sense, research has called into question their effectiveness. The smoke inhaled from fire retardants is highly toxic to human health. Firefighters have higher rates of certain cancers than the general population, in part because of this. PBDEs are being phased out from the market, but it is still legal in Canada to receive and sell imports with this toxic substance. Many of its replacements are also highly toxic to our health. Toxics like the ones I listed today are ever present in our day-to-day lives. People across Canada, particularly those in lower income brackets and people who can't buy their way out of the problem, are at risk of exposure to PFAS and PBDE and BPA and BPS and phthalates, and the list goes on from the products that we buy to work, home, and school. An updated Canadian Environmental Protection Act will help us get one step closer to a Canada that is free of toxic, dangerous chemicals. You can tell your Member of Parliament to prioritize the passage of Bill S5 through the House of Commons by visiting the link in our bio and sending them a letter. Help us protect everyone in Canada from unnecessary and harmful everyday toxics.